A very good evening and welcome to the national broadcast. I'm Malsha Dharmavadana.
A very good evening indeed. I am Charita Minipuraraji, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news.
The price of bread decreased by 5 rupees. The foreign minister will address the UN Human Rights session tomorrow. New bus services commence between Hambantota and Colombo along the Southern Expressway. The productive 100 days of the new government. Calls for nominations not to be granted for corrupt politicians at the forthcoming parliamentary election. Former President of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak, has passed away.
On to those and other stories in detail now, and starting off with local stories. The All Ceylon Bakery Owners Association states the price of bread will be brought down by 5 rupees with effect from midnight tomorrow. Thereby, the price of 450 gram of bread will be decreased by 5 rupees. The All Ceylon Bakery Owners Association says the price reduction was possible as a result of the tax concessions granted by the government. Bakery owners over the past few years had requested the previous government to exempt from the VAT. However, they did not receive a favourable response from any administration. The All Ceylon Bakery Owners Association states as the present government, upon assuming powers, released them from the VAT and NBT, it was a great relief to them.
Minister of Foreign Relations, Skills, Development, Empowerment and Labour Relations, Dinesh Gunawardena, who leads the Sri Lankan delegation to the 43rd session of Human Rights Council, arrived in Geneva this evening. The minister is scheduled to address the high-level segment of the Human Rights Council tomorrow. He will formally inform the council members of the decision of the government of Sri Lanka to withdraw its co-sponsorship of Resolution 41 of March 2019. The resolution on promoting reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka is also incorporates and built on preceding resolutions 31 of October 2015 and 34-1 of March 2017. Minister Gunawardena will also respond to the oral update on Sri Lanka by the High Commissioner on 27 February. He will meet the High Commissioner of Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, on February 28 February. The Sri Lankan delegation on the current session includes State Minister of Public Administration and Home Affairs, Mahinda Samarasinghe, former Secretary, Ravinatha Aryasinghe, Additional Secretary to the President, Admiral, retired, Jayantha Columbage, and several other high-level officials.
And meanwhile, new bus services between Colombo and Hambantota on the Southern Expressway have been commenced today under the patronage of Transport Minister Mahinda Amarveera. The last stretch of the Southern Expressway opened on Monday, creating a direct access from Colombo to several towns in Hambantota area. 16 CTB buses have been mobilized for the services on Southern Expressway, directly connecting Hambantota, Katharagama and Tangol towns with Colombo. The first bus for Hambantota town started its service this morning with the participation of Minister Mahinda Amarveera. Another bus service between Katharagama to Colombo was also commenced. It was commenced from Tissa Maharama bus stand in an auspicious time. It will take 2.5 hours of our bus to travel from Ketawa to Hambantota town. Interchanges in Aparaka, Beliat, Kasagala, Agunakola Palace, Baravakumbara, Surevava and Andravava areas will as connecting points as many Southern Expressway townships with capital Colombo. Vehicles travel from Colombo to sacred city of Katharagama can use connecting roads from Matala interchange with the Lunugambahera Reservoir Road. The Lunugambahera Reservoir Road has been developed as a 4-lane highway.
A one-day international cricket encounter will take place at the Mahinda Rajapakse Cricket Stadium at Suryavava in Hambantota tomorrow for the first time after 2017. Sri Lanka will play the West Indies. Cricket fans can travel along Southern Express in order to reach the venue. After a lapse of 3 years, Mahinda Rajapakse International Cricket Stadium at Suryavava in Hambantota is preparing for an ODI. The stadium was constructed focusing on 2011 World Cup. Since then, 21 day internationals have been played, out of which Sri Lanka have featured in 19 of the games, has secured victory in 8. However, West Indies, which will be playing tomorrow's ODI, has still not played a match at this venue. This, being the largest ODI cricket stadium in the country, can accommodate 35,000 spectators.
And it is 100 days since the government commenced the rebuilding of the economy whilst preserving the Sri Lankan identity so that the country can stand alongside any country in the world. This is an evaluation of the decisions taken on behalf of the country and for the benefit of the people. As the first prominent move in the first stage, the development of 1,000 schools to the level of national school can be noted. Another decision is to create a knowledge-filled student population by ensuring university education to all those who pass the GCE advanced level examination. In addition, with effect from January, under a special task force, 100,000 employment opportunities were being granted for the youth in poor families who lack required qualifications. In addition, training undergoing teacher training will be facilitated to further teach their learning upon graduation. Several steps have been taken to strengthen the state sector. The obtainment of recommendations from a panel of experts while appointing heads to state institutions, instructions given to display the state emblem at state institutions instead of photographs of the president and the subject minister, revision of the salaries of heads of state institutions, and the reduction of the higher salaries drawn by certain chairpersons are significant decisions taken in this regard. Plans were also drawn to trigger an acceleration growth in tourism sector for the benefit of the economy. Thereby, the project annual revenue from the tourism sector by 2025 is $10 million. Instructions have been provided to halt the auctioning of properties mortgaged while connecting debt of small and medium-scale entrepreneurship that do not exceed 300 billion rupees. It was during the 100-day period that amendments were effected to mitigate difficulties faced by small-scale enterprises which engage in traditional industries. The Minister of Agriculture, which was housed at a privately owned building whilst incurring a monthly rent over 20 billion rupees, was relocated at the Govijana Mandire recently. Among the steps taken to uplift the local farmer, the prohibition of importation of pepper and cinnamon as well as minor export crops and the 50 rupees certified price determined for a kilo of paddy are prominent. For paddy that did not confirm the required standard, a certified price of 48 rupees was given. Among the examples given to the public by the President on running a people-centric mechanism of governance with limited wastage, the restriction of vehicles in the President's motorcade and the President's decision to choose his residence as his official residence are noteworthy. The cabinet of interim government was restricted to 16 portfolios and a pledge was given that next cabinet will also have a restricted number of ministries. The assurance of certificates of conformity within 1 day in the construction of houses, the development of 100,000 kilometers of roadways in upgrading rural infrastructure, the provision of 150,000 drinking water connections for the rural population and the reduction of the VAT up to 8% are significant decisions taken on behalf of the common masses. And the March 12 movement request for nominations not to be issued for corrupt politicians at the forthcoming parliamentary elections. The movement has decided to meet with the leaders of all political parties represented in the current parliament in order to raise awareness in this regard. Thereby, members of Marsh Fire movement met with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapakse today and discussed this concern. The movement has planned to launch a program on the 12th of March in order to re-evaluate the parameters in this regard and obtain a consensus of political party leaders. Meanwhile, the third National State Sector Development Strategic Forum was held under the patronage of Prime Minister at the Sri Lankan Foundation Institute in Colombo today. The year's theme is Let Us Make the Vision of Prosperity a Reality. Over 250 attendees, including the chairpersons, board members and senior management officials of state departments, corporations and statutory boards were part of the forum. Minister Bandara Gunawardena and a group of invitees also attended the event.
A fire that erupted in a marshy area at Buttegamuwa in Rajagiriya was doused jointly by the firefighting unit of Kotte Municipal Council and the fire Air Force today. The blaze erupted around 11 a.m. today. The fire brigade of the Kotte Municipal Council took efforts to bring the fire under control. However, the location became unapproachable. Thereafter, a Bell 212 type helicopter of the Air Force was deployed to control the blaze. A number of barrels were sent at the location of the fire, and it's suspected that illegal activity could have been going on. The Valikada police are conducting further investigations.
And meanwhile, a 16-year-old boy fell to his death from an upper floor of the Central Bank building this evening. The police media spokesperson office stated that the Colombo Fort police are carrying out investigations. The incident occurred at around 3:15 p.m. today. After the magistrate's inquiry, the body was taken to the Colombo National Hospital for the post-mortem. The incident is reportedly a suicidal death.
We continue with more local stories. Ministry of Education Dallas Alahaperuma says the government has taken steps to rectify salary anomalies of teachers. Ministry of Education Dallas Alahaperuma said as the Ministry of Education, they have taken a policy decision in this regard as there are anomalies in teacher salaries. Therefore, steps have been taken to table a cabinet paper for the same. He says the Ministry of Education took this decision around a month ago. However, the country is aware that a budget has not been passed, and since the country is running on a vote on account, it is not possible to implement the decision. Therefore, the President, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers have taken a decision in principle in this regard. We move on for a short commercial break. Coming up next is foreign news.
Welcome back, and now international news for this evening. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, ousted by the military in 2011, has died in Cairo at the age of 91. Mubarak spent 3 decades in office before a popular uprising swept Egypt. Former President Hosni Mubarak was born in 1928. Mubarak entered the Air Force as a teenager and went on to play a key role in 1973 Arab-Israel War. He became president less than a decade later following the assassination of President Anwar Sadat and played a key role in the Israel-Palestinian peace process. He was found guilty on complicity in the killing of protesters during the revolution. The conviction was overturned and was freed in March 2017. His death was confirmed by Egyptian state news today. Earlier in the day, the Al Watan website reported that he died at a military hospital. Mubarak underwent surgery in late January and was photographed with his grandson as he recovered. On last Saturday, however, Mubarak's sons Allah said that the former president remained in intensive care.
US President Donald Trump said today that India will buy $3 billion worth of military equipment, including attack helicopters, as the two countries deepen defense and commercial ties in an attempt to balance the weight of China in the region.
India and the United States are making progress on trade talks. That's according to US President Donald Trump, speaking after holding talks with India's Narendra Modi on Tuesday.
Prime Minister Modi is forging bilateral economic relationships that is fair and reciprocal. Our teams have made tremendous progress on a comprehensive trade agreement, and I'm optimistic we can reach a deal that will be of great importance to both countries.
The two countries have been trying to close their differences over agriculture, digital trade and tariffs, but have announced a $3 billion deal to buy military equipment, including attack helicopters.
Earlier today, we expanded our defense cooperation with agreements for India to purchase more than $3 billion of advanced American military equipment, including Apache and MH-60 Romeo helicopters, the finest in the world.
Trump's first official visit to India, one of the few big countries where his personal approval rating is above 50%, has been full of spectacle, with Modi pulling out all the stops. including a private visit to the Taj Mahal and a stadium of 100,000 plus people calling out Namaste Trump on Monday.
Namaste Trump! Namaste!
But Modi could not hide the country's bubbling domestic tensions. Violent protests broke out in Delhi on Monday over a new citizenship law that critics say discriminates against Muslims. The clashes in the same city as Trump's speech have left 7 dead and 150 wounded.
And a ceasefire prorogued by Egypt and the United Nations took hold on the Israel-Gaza border today after 2 days of fighting between Israel and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group.
After 2 days of fighting, the Israel-Gaza border was quiet on Tuesday, the result of a ceasefire brokered by Egypt and the United Nations. The violence erupted on Sunday when Israeli troops killed a member of the militant group Islamic Jihad near the Gaza border fence. Israel's military says the person was trying to plant explosives. In the resulting fighting, Islamic Jihad is said to have fired 80 rockets towards Israeli communities, according to the Israeli military. Meanwhile, Israel attacked sites in Gaza and Syria that killed 3 members of the militant group. No casualties were reported on the Israeli side of the frontier. Israel says it has now reopened roads near the Gaza border and train services are resuming, but some border crossings remain closed except for humanitarian cases. The incident comes just a week before the Israeli election, in which Benjamin Netanyahu is seeking a 5th term in office after 2 inconclusive votes.
Moving on to Syria, displaced Syrians says they have been backed into an increasingly shrinking pocket of land near the Turkish border as the Russian-backed government assault in the country's north continues.
Sheltering in a cave for warmth, the situation for people fleeing violence in northwest Syria grows more desperate by the day. Backed by Russian air power, Syrian government forces have stepped up a campaign to retake the last rebel strongholds in the Aleppo and Idlib areas. Nearly 1 million people have been uprooted, most of them women and children. In Idlib city, some have been forced to improvise in a bid to stay warm, like these 3 families in a former prison.
The Russian shelling forced us to leave our homes. We took what we could and came to this prison ourselves. We decided to stay in this cell, which is about 20 square meters, and we divided it between 3 families. We still need things like blankets, food.
Humanitarian agencies say this is the biggest single displacement of civilians in the 9-year-old war. For those who've made it to camps on the Turkish border, the situation is no better. At a large camp in Atma, one man said he fears that Syrian government forces will continue to advance, leaving them trapped.
If the regime advances or tries to come in this direction, the only solution is to enter Turkey. And either the Turks will kill us or the Russians will. Eventually I'm going to die at the hands of either party. But to return to regime rule is impossible. Suicide will be better for us. Seeing my children, relatives, the women commit suicide, or I would kill them or poison them, this would be better than returning to regime rule.
Fearing a fresh refugee crisis, Turkey has poured thousands of troops into Idlib. President Tayyip Erdogan has threatened to use military force to drive back Syrian forces unless they pull back by the end of the month. Turkey hosts about 3.7 million Syrians and says it cannot absorb any more.
And Britain's Queen Elizabeth speaking on an unannounced visit to Britain's security service M50.
I would like to take my visit here today as an opportunity to thank you all for the tireless work you do to keep our country safe. I'm always struck by the remarkable resolve with which you carry out your vital role. There will no doubt continue to be significant threats and challenges ahead. But on each of my visits to MI5, I have been impressed by the way that you have adapted to the changing threats to our nation. whether responding to the threats from the Nazis or the Cold War, domestic terrorism or the cybersphere, you have always demonstrated the utmost commitment to your motto, Regnum Defendi. Because of the nature of your work, it is without public recognition. So it is on behalf of the country that I say to you all, thank you.
And meanwhile, Iran's deputy health minister has tested positive for the new coronavirus disease as he struggles to contain an outbreak that has killed 15 people. In a video, Iraj Haruchi said he was self-isolating and starting medication following his diagnosis. He was seen mopping his brow repeatedly at a news conference yesterday when he denied the authorities were lying about the scale of the COVID-19 outbreak. They have reported 95 cases, but the actual number is thought to be higher. South Korea was racing today to contain South Korea was racing today to contain the largest outbreak of the new coronavirus outside China as the COVID-19 disease claimed more lives than the spread further early in Italy, Europe's first significant cluster of cases. The nearly 1,000 cases and 10 confirmed deaths from the illness in South Korea pushed the global tally of patients over 8,000 and the death toll closer to 3,000.
This is from South Korea. Right now I am in the city of Kime. There are over 2,000 Sri Lankan living in this city. You can see some of the shops are closed and there are few people we can see in this moment. Korean government and Sri Lankan embassies giving a great service to us. In any kind of emergency case, we can contact to embassy or we can call to 1339 and they are providing emergency service to all foreigners. So I want to say again and again, there are no problems to any of Sri Lankan. We are really safe. We can do our day-to-day activities in normal way. So don't be afraid. And there are some of the fake news going on the social media. But if you want to get correct information, please contact to Sri Lankan embassy.
Italy's coronavirus outbreak, the first major one in Europe, continued to grow on Tuesday as officials confirmed dozens of new cases. There were a total of 283 people with the COVID-19 disease, 7 of whom has died. That was an increase of 54 confirmed cases since Monday evening. This outbreak was centered in northern region of Lombardy with a total of 212 cases and 6 of deaths. Dozens were more sick with the virus in nearby Veneto. Sri Lankan's Consul General in Milano, Rajapakse Stadium, told Rupavahini about this case. And in your sports update, we now bring you the special segment of Big Match Fever. Rupavahini College and Preston College face each other. Rupavahini College and Thurston College face each other in the 57th big match. The Rupavahini side secured total victories at the inter-school cricket matches and 7 first-inning victories. Lishan Amarasinghe, Ravidu Ratnaika, Tevindu Dikwala, Savidu Utsara and Yasiru Katsuriarachi displayed high competency levels at the year's big match season. And with that, we conclude tonight's news. Do it just tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
Good night.